this week, I have the pleasure of having two of the one of them. I should say probably the goats, if you will, in our tradition of music. These guys, not only have they paved the way for individuals like myself, but probably all of the names that you've heard, from Robert Randolph all the way down to Roosevelt Collier and the Lee Boys, to the late Glenn Lee. And of course, you know, we started this, it's so ironic, I started this honoring their dear brother, my dear brother, Darick Campbell. And ladies and gentlemen, what can I say? The Campbell Brothers. I have Phil Campbell and Chuck Campbell. How you guys doing, man?
I'm doing all right, man.
So it's so good to see you all, man.
You
Chuck,
don't have
you doing good?
Anything, man, that you could put on, man, and make it, you know, feel hype.
Which track you want me to put on? which track you want me to put on? It don't even matter. Any Campbell Brothers track is gonna be hot. So, man, it's so good to see you guys, man. Y'all been coming up in every conversation that we've been having here, and I'm just glad that you guys are here with me on today, and just blessing everybody with your presence. How you been doing?
I've been great. Everything's going pretty good. Except for people leaving us, it's just 2020 been pretty rough, man.
Yeah.
As far as people leaving, and it's just like Valerie is like our sister, and it's just, you know, it's just rekindled things from us with like Darick. So it's just because she's a part of the family too. So it's just, this year has been pretty hard being, you know, having to stay in. But other than that,
yeah,
thank God we're healthy.
Yeah.
I think the biggest issue about all of that is not being able to be there for people. You know, like with Valerie, we'd have made that. We'd have been on our way to make it, right?
Right.
You know, to stand with that family and let them know that they have our love and support, and you can't do that in this pandemic, and that's what's, I think, the saddest thing of all of this. And conversely, we know that there were so many people that wanted to do the same for us, as we went through our tragedy. So, again, but we're just thankful to everybody for all the prayers, all the love. That truly has helped us get here and stay here and get to this place, as Chuck said, but we're doing well. So, hey, God is still good, man.
Yeah, man. He's still good, and it is so good to see you all. For everybody that's joining us on Facebook, please like and share this post. Again, for those of you all that are just joining, I'm here with the Campbell brothers, Phil and Chuck, and I'm very excited to just have conversation with these guys. Y'all excuse our lateness. Sunday school ran over just a little bit. We did have the collection. We contributed to that late hour fee. So we good. So we good. So every conversation that I've had, even for some of the guys that didn't grow up, more so in the house of God, or the Church of the Living God, doesn't matter where, even the ones that weren't a part of the House of God or Church of the Living God organizations, you guys, the Campbell brothers, just came up. So much respect, so much that was, received from you guys. Chuck, personally, from me, you set up my first pedal steel guitar. I don't know if you remember that, man. Back in 87. It will be the famous assembly that we talked about, that was in Pompano. Everybody's trying to get it's a tape floating around somewhere, but it was you, Phil was on guitar, my pop was on bass, Darick was on drums, Glenn was on keys. Y'all remember that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, your pops was another icon, man. It was an icon, man. man.
So listen, just the story on him, right?
Okay.
So we're doing our first real project back in 1987. So we're really going back in the Wayback Machine.
So we talking the Chosen Few?
Huh? Yeah,
We're talking the Chosen Few?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know, when you think about 87, first of all, just to realize how long ago that actually was or is, you know, it's kind of frightening. But, you know, so we're working on the project, and somehow or another, Ed gets word that we're working on this project. And he goes, you know what, man, y'all need help. I'm coming up there. And he just came up, right, to help us record the project. And he's there, you know, he's there and giving us, you know, giving us his insight and saying, you know, because he's been doing records and recording in Chicago. And he's like, hey, man, this, you know, should do this, think about that. And so we said, man, why don't you play? Wait a minute, man, y'all want me to play? Yeah, man, you. All but you gonna take all the bass? Like, no, bro, it ain't like that, man. Let's go. So he played on some of the tracks, and in fact, that track that you like, right, "Love Your Neighbor," that's the one and only Ed Harmon playing on that, man.
Wow.
And you know, so it just goes to show, and again, that's the kind of brotherhood that we've enjoyed as musicians, right? That someone will be sitting in Chicago, pay their own way to come up and help us, you know, get this project out and do what we're doing. But that's the kind of guy your dad was, man.
Yeah.
Actually, didn't he come from Fort Lauderdale then?
Say that again?
He came from Fort Lauderdale. It was between Fort Lauderdale and Chicago. We didn't know he was living from year to year.
He did.
Yeah. He left his poor children all the way there in Pompano in order to come and help us.
That's a shame. That's a cry shame.
Well, when you say I set up your guitar, I normally try not to take. First of all, it was a blessing that God blessed me with a certain amount of knowledge about this pedal steel guitar. But the reason why I can't remember specifically, because you had already in mind what you wanted. And it was just a matter of me telling you how to do it mechanically. And then, of course, you must have done most of the work. So it was, you know, and most guys have been like that. Most encounters have been like that, where the people did most of the work. And so it's always, it's been a blessing. So every time that happened with me, that I would work with people on their steels and their setups, I learned a lot too.
Yeah.
And really got a lot of inspiration from that. I won't say I copied things from you guys, but I got a lot of inspiration from it.
Well, we got a lot of inspiration from you, from both of you all, from all three, all of you all. Quiet as kept. Yeah, you set it up, but I did. I kind of took it and just went places that I wanted to go, and
yes.
But you helped me get started with that, and I really appreciate it. I never forgot it. But it would be during that assembly that you guys. That's like a classic. That tape, that whole assembly was like a class. I think it was a Friday night. You guys linked up together, man, and yeah, we still talking about that tape. So yeah, so let's go back, because you talked about something, Phil, that a lot of people don't know about, and that was before the Campbell Brothers produced any albums, before you guys went out and were doing what you do now. You all were already recording artists within your own right, and it was the chosen few. It was the chosen few that I remember that tape. I still have it. It's in walking distance to where I'm sitting right now. And there was a lot on there. Calvin was featured on that. Man, my favorite song, my brother would love me for this, Promulgate. Y'all don't know. That was a song, man. I'm still waiting for y'all to re-release that, man.
Well, so first of all, Promulgate was actually written by Chuck, right?
Okay.
And came from one of our great late Bishop Joseph Thomas, who used to use this word. And when we heard him using it, we were like, okay, what exactly is he talking about? And once we realize what he was actually saying. Mm-hmm. Then Chuck just took it and ran with it from there, right? And wrote the song. So yeah, but you know, the short answer, or I shouldn't say the short answer, but Chosen Few kind of set the template for how we always approach things, which was that thing became a community project, right? So we always loved to include other people, especially we thought there was opportunity involved. Right. And so, you know, we had opportunity. Calvin was up while we were doing it, and he had a couple songs. He like, man, you know, I got a couple songs I've been wanting to record. And we like, you know what, man? Come on, let's record them. And then once we did it, it was, you know what, hey man, why don't we include them in this release? You know, since we're getting this thing released. Yeah. Charles Flannery. Now that's a name that yes. that was one of the great pioneers of the lead guitar, or back then we called the Spanish guitar, playing rhythm. And he was a recording genius and a giant. Wow. It turned out he'd actually been involved with some of George Clinton's work in Detroit when they were recording Aqua Boogie. So wow. He's actually in the studio with them doing that recording amongst the other 600 people that George Clinton would have. But he was working on the album, and he took us to the studio. And of course, we were clowning them, telling them, man, get out of here. You don't know no. He's like, look, man, I'm going to show you where it is. Look at here. Took us to the studio. Then we looked on the album, and there it was.
Wow.
That studio. And he took us there. He had keys to the studio. Took us in, showed us around and everything, man. So he's the one that really set the stage for us as far as guiding us and mentoring us in recording.
Right.
And kind of equipment and classic stuff that we should invest in. So as opposed to worrying about investing in the latest synths and those kind of things, he taught us about preamps, microphones, compressors, those kind of things that normally most people don't think about.
Right.
He was on top of it back then. And even some of the advice, some of the classics that we see today,
right,
he told us back then to go get, right, when they weren't. And now they're classics even to this day. That's what a visionary he was in recording, man. So wow. He was on that album helping us produce it, along with bringing in Calvin. We had Alfreda. McKinney was on there, so that's Fat Man's mom, right? Yep. So she's in on that project. And the list goes on, you know, of all the folks that participated. And that's just the way we like to do things.
Yeah.
You know. So when it was time for us to do the Millennium and Centennial, that was nothing strange that we could try and pull everybody together. Yeah. That's something that's been our style.
Wow. Also on that project, Ricky Fowler is the guy that actually reproduced the tapes.
Nice.
Yeah, so we had help from all over the place. And at the time, you don't realize how much help you're getting.
Right.
You know, sometimes, you know, when the Lord comes in and helps, sometimes you don't even feel it, but you're floating.
Right.
And you don't know you're floating until you have another time to do things and you find out that you don't have as much help as you had that one time when the Lord was really lifting you up. So yeah, Ricky came in at the last minute and really took us over the top.
Wow. Yeah, he's another phenomenal vocalist and songwriter, arranger, man. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of our regrets, that we never did go ahead and do a project with him.
With Ricky, and yeah.
We threatened to do one and promised to do one and never.
Yeah, we had on the Campbell Brothers live, on tour.
Yeah, on tour.
Yeah. He did a song or something on tour with us, but
right.
We should have done more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, for the things that you guys have done, I mean, even now when you look at a lot of the music that you guys put out, you know, you have the best of the best, you know, working with you guys, and that says a lot about who you guys are and what you've always been and contributed to the music that we call Sacred Steel music. So if I can go back, and we'll come back to the recording and even some of the stuff that you guys are doing and have done. How did it start with you? How did it start with you all? You know, I remember now coming up, I remember Phil on bass. I remember the Phil that played bass, but you know, and everybody knows him as a guitar player. But I remember when Phil was like hardcore bass player, just killing it. You know, Chuck, you know, coming up, that white MSA, that was classic. You know, for all of us young guys, you know, coming up watching you, you guys changed the spectrum of music, and I don't say change in the sense of, you know, coming in and just revamping everything. Y'all took it to another dimension, using the effects, just doing all kind of stuff. Chuck, your innovation with pedals, Phil, your innovation with the effects and just not being afraid to do stuff that was on point. It was in line. Like, you guys didn't miss a beat. It was just like, okay, when we leave Nashville, I need that special effect that Phil had and that Chuck had, or that the Campbell Brothers used to do whatever. Like, you guys took the music to that place in all spectrums. You know, you did it musically, you did it with the sound. You know, you challenged the sound to how you guys put it out. So where did that come? Like, how did you guys really get started? Like, you know, I know we've been in church all our lives, but you know, when did you guys start playing? How did all that start for y'all?
Well, I was the first to start.
Okay.
I started on the drums, and which I think is the bedrock of all of our playing.
It is.
I'm talking about all of us from the church.
Yeah.
We have such a rhythm base.
Yeah.
And most of us have started out on drums in church. You know, that's where you start. And at one time, I really wanted to get a guitar, get a steel, because once I heard that music, and I heard it, my first time remembering it, Dad went to school in Nashville.
Okay.
Went to Tennessee State University. And so when General Assembly came in, man, you'd hear that steel on the campus, and it just sounded with reverb, and it's just sounded, the music sounded so great.
Right.
And in our local churches in Rochester, we had Bishop Dillard around that played, and Mac Dillard, the brothers, and they were good. And you had Otis Blue, and really a guy that just died last week was George Wright.
Wow.
George Wright was General Wright, or he was the first one that bought his son they had a pedal steel.
Okay.
And man, you know, we had great musicians in New York. And of course, Bishop Thomas would bring Calvin, because he was bishop over New York and Detroit. So he would bring Calvin or Ronnie Hall, have them to come over to the assemblies.
Right.
So I wanted to play steel so bad, man. And one Christmas when I was back in '68, I got a steel for Christmas.
Okay.
And that was all she wrote. And of course, my first time playing in church, it was horrible. They told me to take it home. They do better with just the hand drum, you know, just the,
Right.
and but our church was always progressive. They bought us a drum set, you know, and when few churches had drum sets.
Right.
And so that's how I started out on the steel.
Mm-hmm.
And a little while later, after I learned a little bit, and my parents and our church would have banquets and fundraisers. So they would have Calvin come in, and when Calvin stopped coming in, his cousin Charles Flannery, who we talked about a little earlier,
Okay.
he started coming over, and he would accompany Calvin, and he started coming over, and he spent a lot of time showing me how to taking me from just regular to actually sounding close to him and Calvin.
Right.
To where people say, hey man, you almost sounding like them, you know, them guys, you know. And so Phil, by that time, was the drummer.
Okay.
And
By the
Darick,
way, very, very average, right? So when Darick came along, he took me out. And he was only like 9. you know,
Wow.
that's
yeah,
how.
Phil had, back then, drumming was just good timing.
Right.
It wasn't, all the serious beats.
Right.
And of course, I was playing drums in Nashville.
Okay.
So I played for mainly Ted and Calvin when they was the main guys on the scene.
Wow.
By the time Henry was coming in, I was going out because I had started playing steel so much that when I was coming to Nashville, I was so rusty that it was, they started out at 120 and I'd be at 160 by the 160 beats per minute by the end of the hymn, it was just bad, man.
Wow.
And but with that experience, I got to be mentored by Calvin and Ted.
Wow.
Now, with that, then I was hoping that I would get somebody to play along with me.
Mm-hmm.
Calvin had Charles and Ronnie Hall and everybody playing with him, of course, with Larry Taylor and Kenny.
Mm-hmm.
And then Ted and Kenny was like, they was just,
yeah,
they were, that was a combination and a half. And so I decided one time just to go out and buy a bass and give it to Phil.
Okay.
Next thing I knew, he was a monster, man. He was a monster. And at the same time, I wanted a pedal steel. But my reason for buying a pedal steel was in order to play like Ted and Calvin,
right,
and Henry, they played in different tunings.
right.
All a straight E tuning, but it was conversions. So one of them would have the root at the top.
Right.
Henry had a fifth at the top.
Yep.
And so I came up with the brilliant idea of that if I had a pedal steel, and this is what I talked to my father and investors, that if I could have pedals, then I could make the pedals change the tunings without retuning.
Wow.
Because the worst thing that could happen is the pre-service is going, you get ready to go, and you tune like Ted in the train.
Right.
And you start and it's just going nowhere.
Right.
And you got to switch over to playing more like Nelson. And so what happened is you couldn't retune.
Right.
So, but with pedals, I could change between the different people, the different styles, and that's what made me want to get into pedals.
Right.
And once I did that, then that opened up other things where it really taught me all kind of music theory. And then, of course, when Phil came along, he started, and him and the bass players at that time, they were just steeped in choir songs and really modern, the new, Edwin Hawkins,
right,
Andre Crouch, the modern gospel choir and that kind of music.
Right.
Those guys was phenomenal. And then you throw on top of that, then I had keyboard mentors such as Daryl Brundage and and of course Glenn.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
another one.
Yeah.
With those guys, they was showing me what they had learned, and a lot of these guys had some classic training along with what they knew in church, and I had a lot of stuff put into me besides the most of a lot of prayers from the church and bishops and parents.
Yeah.
Just a lot of stuff was put into me, and I couldn't believe how good Phil got on the bass. And then he switched over to guitar, and he was got ridiculous there. And
yeah.
then of course Darick comes along, and that's the final closing the back door. Darick comes along and ends up emulating Henry.
Okay.
To where he almost sounded, you know, like, man, he had Henry down to. I mean, it sounded. I mean, he played just sounded so much like Henry, man. And then he had Ted stuff that I had not, which you're very good at. You're very good at the Ted. Man, you guys really good. And I never learned or was able to comprehend Ted style until just my latter years, because it's got so many turns, you know, fills and passing notes. And Phil and Darick was better at that. So I had a lot of teaching with not only the mentors, but peers, and then the younger guys coming along. I'm telling you, man, it's just been a pleasure.
Wow.
Well, you know, and just to speak to some of the points there.
Yeah.
So going back to the rewinding to the bass. So, you know, what happened there was, you know, I'll never forget when Chuck brought the bass home. And he said, and I said, what's that for? He's like, this for you, man. I want you to learn how to play bass. I'm going, really? Can I do this, right? But I started around with it and started working with it, and it started coming, right? And it's just one of those things that you know, I'm just blessed, right, to be able to grasp the instrument.
Yeah.
The other thing that was happening is we were, as Chuck was saying, we were learning, like, not only just learning contemporary gospel and all those things that were going on. I was fortunate enough to be in a high school music program where it was actually a free form program. So there was no formal training per se. We were just allowed to explore music. And so in the late 70s, this is when fusion is going on. So now we're listening to Stanley Clarke, Jaco Pastorius,
yes,
all these different people. So we're listening to all the fusion stuff, and we start doing. Now here's what's crazy. That's when I started finding out Harold Brady, another name, right? One of the most unbelievable musicians of our time.
Yeah. He's
playing Jaco Pastorius stuff in church. So I heard the line. I'm like, wait a minute, that's Jaco that he put, and he's getting it in and putting it in, right? Yeah. He and Larry Taylor, what did they like to talk about the devil's music? Them jokes was fusion music in church in the 70s, okay? That's how crazy those guys were. And again, as musicians, right? So we always had these great musicians to look up to and aspire to, to be like. And I think the thing that helped us, and then of course what Darick started doing on the drums, he started studying Billy Cobham and all these things. So he started talking to me. And I'm like, man, well, what are you doing? He's like, yeah, you know, I got to get these paradiddles, man, from Billy Cobham. And then, man, and then the other thing that Chuck brought us was, he brought us a tape of the Police, right? And so we started thinking in terms as a group, how can we form a cohesive sound like that would be that tight with only 3 people? Wow. And so all of a sudden, you know, Chuck was Andy Summers, I'm Sting on bass, and Eric is Stuart Copeland. And we took that as a model. Now, out of all this stuff, the thing we discovered, and we always understood or we were cognizant of, is that a lot of guys get stuff and learn it from different genres of music or styles of music.
Right.
But the most important thing is to be able to bring it to church in such a way that it still fits what we do.
Right.
It still has to feel like us. And so that was always a challenge, that you can't just take something verbatim, just take it and just plop it in the church. That's not how it works.
Right.
So you got to work that thing out, massage it, do all the different things so that it still feels like us, even though you're bringing a new element into it.
Right.
And I think made a lot of stuff that we did, that's what made it our own, because we always paid a lot of attention to, hey, look, we're not just going to jump in here and start playing fusion runs.
Right.
We're going to do it in such a way that it was an evolution of what we were already doing, and how were we able to build on something that we had already established. And I think that's what enabled us to innovate to the degree that we did, in addition to challenging each other, right? That said, hey, you're not playing that right. No, that's not how that's supposed to go. Nah, that doesn't fit. That's nice, but it doesn't, right? And so those are the kind of things that we challenged each other on, to say that you had to, it had to be right.
Yeah. Well, this is good. And for everybody that's watching, again, like and share this post. They're dropping some gems on us, you all. So I never knew that about the Police. Wow, that's one of my favorite groups too.
Yeah, no, it was interesting how they mapped, if you thought about it, as to what was going on. And so Darick started taking that tight snare. So now you're getting back into sound. So Darick actually tuned that snare to get the Stuart Copeland snap. Right. And as a result, when you combine that with that, you lock that into the hand clap. Oh, you got a lot going on. Just that, right? You take a snare like that and put it with a hand clap and get everybody locked. That's called one accord, Doc.
Right.
And so a lot of good stuff is going to happen when that occurs. So that's just one element. And then of course he was doing the same with the kick. Then he and I would lock and make sure that whatever bass line I was doing, it had a lock with his kick. And then all Chuck had to do was just put a little something on the top.
Just a little something. Not much.
And of course, but
that's very
put a little something on the top though.
No, that's very true.
He dropped a lot of cream on it, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah, but a lot of that is true. But we were also open to criticism.
Yeah.
What happens is, and what's happening is, a lot of times people are telling you, okay, this effect works, but that effect does not work. They're telling you that tune works, but that one doesn't work. Now, the way you're told that is they'll come up after service and say, man, that tune, that was nice. That's nice. Now, if they don't say nothing about a tune, you can pretty much kick that one out the side. And of course, if everybody sat down while you're playing something, you can almost say, well, I got to still work on that one. Right. But we had a lot of, so what would happen a lot of times in Nashville is once you got together, you had, did your stuff locally. Right. Then you went to the state assembly and tried it. And it might have worked in the state assembly, but then you come down to Nashville and, they'll come up to you, Ted Calvin, and Eddie Harmon, Lorenzo Dudley, all of them, they'll be like, hey, man, for that tune, Right. Man, I don't know about that tune you were playing, man. If they say that, you could just throw that one out of the, man, I couldn't hear nothing that effect you had on. So one example I had, one time I brought a guitar synthesizer. Okay. And I was playing the steel with a synthesizer.
Yep, I remember that.
Okay. So, we passed that on over to Phil because first of all, they implemented it better, the technology better with the guitar.
Yes.
But a couple of my uncles and the other guys and a couple of the mentors said, hey, man, why are you trying to play synthesizer on a steel guitar when the steel guitar is unique enough? What are you trying to do? Wow. It's not like people don't hear a synthesizer and they play it better than you. Why don't you stick with the steel and do that the best that you can do? And that's what made me give up on the synthesizer as an effect for the steel. Because the steel is so unique and is not as popular. Right. And so, and when I gave it over to Phil, he took it to another level and it just works out better that way. And those type of things, the type of criticism that we've always taken and really been able to help mold us into something that was better.
Yeah. No, this is good. This is you dropping y'all really dropping some gems right now, and a lot of history, because a lot of guys really emulate and look up to you guys, not only as steel players but as guitar player, and the things that I know, things that I've witnessed, to hear it from you all's mouth, and for them to get your experience is a whole different story. So before we go on, I have to say hello to someone that's joined us.
Hey, sis.
How are you? How art thou?
Hey, brothers. Hey, Dante, a.k.a. Leroy.
You doing all right?
Doing good, thank you.
Good. It is so good to see you and to have you on as well. I definitely wanted to include you in the conversation. I know we talking music, but a lot of y'all don't know that Danette can sing too.
I guess so.
He does.
Yes, and she does a lot of work in the community as it relates to music and young people and keeping the art form alive. And you want to tell us a little bit about what you do and what you've been doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Back in, was it 2009 now, Chuck? Chuck and Darick and I, we started Strings for Life, which is a program that was designed to introduce steel guitar to young people in the city of Rochester at Charles Settlement House, back then, where I was a director of programs for the after school as well as for the preschool. And my boss said, hey, what would happen if we put some guitars in the hands of 3rd to 6th graders? So I asked Chuck and Darick what they thought, and they were like, yeah. That's how they were introduced to the guitar, through mentors and people that they had watched in the church and had grown up, and through my dad and through my uncles. And that's how they were introduced to the instrument. So from that premise, they realized that, hey, if we introduce this to young people who are not connected to our tradition in the church, it's another way of outreach. It's another way of sharing the legacy, sharing the history, the rich history behind the music. And so it grew from there, where we first introduced it to 10 3rd to 6th graders at an elementary school. And Chuck and Darick, as well as Lonnie Bennett, were artist mentors to the young people.
Right.
And it was a wonderful experience. And then also we began to introduce it in 2015 as a summer youth employment program.
Wow.
And Phil was brought in at that point as well to provide a lot of the background information and how music crosses into STEM and STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, art, and math, and helping young people to make those connections. And that you don't always just have to be out front in the music. A lot goes on behind the scenes,
right,
that happens related to music. So we did that for 3 years, that program. It was a success. And we are now on hiatus with that because we wanted to follow the young people.
Yeah.
To see where they were. We incorporated college and career life skills training with that as well. And they also learned public speaking. All the things that you probably would learn in church and do in church, we were able to replicate that through the Strings for Life program. That's awesome. We received awards from that through the community. And it's been a part of our service back and giving back to those who are coming behind these great musicians.
Yeah.
And just glad to be able to be a part of that work. And having grown up in the house with them, listening to all of this day in and day out.
How was that?
It was crazy. It was crazy. I'd go into the bathroom in the middle of the night. There would be guitars and amps in the bathroom. I'm like, what the heck is really going on? But yeah.
Look, tell you something. That toilet worship, I'm telling you.
I guess that's where they got some of their best inspiration.
When you say anywhere, anytime, he'll visit you.
Yeah, but
that's the truth.
But my life was enriched through my brothers and through their art form and through their worship and through their praise and through their passion just for music and being able to incorporate it in so many different ways inside the church and outside the church, and how it's become a vehicle for evangelism and for reaching those who would never even don the doors or the steps of a church.
Right.
So yeah, I've grown to love music because of them, and just being in that environment and growing up, it's been amazing.
Yeah.
And it has helped to develop me in a lot of different ways.
This is awesome. For those of you all that are watching on Facebook, again, like and share this post. I am talking to the Campbell brothers along with their sister, Danette Campbell-Bell. And you bring up such some great stuff that hopefully we can talk about a little bit, because that really resonated with me a lot of the programs that you've done, because I'm doing that now. So it is really a good way to not only give back, but it is a good way to keep the torch going. And you've done it in such a way where you were able to involve your brothers, the city now get to know about a platform or a type of music that otherwise would have probably been kept hidden, had you not brought it to the forefront and it be archived the way it was. I'm just excited that I've been a part of programs here locally in Atlanta, where I've been asked to do the apprentice master program with the state. And I was able to get guys like Kashia Hunter, Lawrence King alongside me to talk about the music, So I
do realize you brought up another name, right? You said
Lawrence,
name.
With Willie James.
Come on, talk about him.
Man, Willie James was our drummer for different assemblies, the General Assembly. And his whole thing was, hey, man, you ain't got to worry about it. We gonna kill him. We gonna kill him, man. I say, oh, man, I don't know if we're going to be able to play good enough, man. Are we coming after Calvin? Or are we coming after Ted? Man, we going to kill him, man. Don't even worry about it. He just had all this confidence, man. It too.
You sound just like him. You sound just like him.
He was true.
Oh, he was hyped up. You're like, you right, man. We gonna kill him. You right. Nah, but again, another great drummer, man. And the thing about Willie James King, he always brought the spirit. He never mounted those drums without the spirit. And if you weren't careful, you be playing. Next thing you know, your beat drops out because this joker back in shot. So
he's gonna get up.
But that anointing is what you knew he would always bring into the service, and you knew you were gonna be good,
man. Yeah, he's something else.
Wow.
Lawrence is good too, man.
Lawrence is amazing. He plays steel, but he's an awesome vocalist.
Yeah.
Lawrence can sing. Lawrence can sing you under a bench. He plays bass. Yeah, Lawrence does it all. Yeah, he does it all. But man,
our assembly, right?
Okay.
This is way back again. It's amazing how these years pass. So this is like 2000, circa 2000, 2003. So he's coming. He wants to visit, right? So he's up. He's at the house, and so we all, everybody all over the house or whatever. But from the basement, we just hearing this bad lady. Oh yeah. So I'm like, who's doing all the Erykah Badu stuff?
Right.
Because this joker down in the basement, he's singing all over the place.
Yes, sir.
We didn't know. We did not know.
Lawrence can go. Lawrence King, shout out to you and your pop, man. Yeah, talented family for real. He got it honestly from his mother.
Yeah.
The late Yolanda King. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Preaching, singing machine.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
when you start rolling those names again, back to Chuck's point, you think about all the people, man, all the talented and gifted people that we've been in contact with, man, that we've been blessed to play with, we've been blessed to minister with and be in the services with. and be blessed and edified ourselves by their gifts, by their talents, man.
Right.
You know, that's why I'm grateful that we've always had this approach that it's not just us, it's not just about us, it's not all about our agendas, and we've always tried to make sure that people understood that this was not, because one of the things that happened when we released our album in '98, and the reviewers, and again, Sacred Steel wasn't that well known,
right.
And the reviewers were hearing our music, and they were going, "Oh, the Campbell Brothers music is unbelievable. It's refreshing. It's new. It's spiritual. It's all this thing." But they kept referring to it as the Campbell Brothers music, and that's one of the things that struck Chuck and I. And so when it was time for us to do our next album, and our Hulu wanted us to do a live album, but our thing was we wanted to make sure that people understood where this music came from,
Right.
and that's why Sacred Steel Live became. You know, that's why Ted and Calvin and Willie Eason and all those folks were on that album. Charles Flinning was on that album. It was because we wanted people to understand this was not the Campbell Brothers music. This was music that we had learned from, and we wanted people to see and hear the greats that we learned from. And that's why we wanted to make sure that they were recorded and put out, so that people kind of understood that record and understood this tradition and where it really truly evolved from. And we were to help tell the story. It was being written about, but then we hoped to illustrate it musically. That's what Sacred Steel Live became. So it was supposed to be the Campbell Brothers Live. That was supposed to be our second album, but it turned to Sacred Steel Live because we had all these players. And of course that was Robert's first recording as well. So, so, you know, it was again, it was back to that whole idea of community and of everybody, giving everybody opportunity as much as you can.
I'm glad you said that. Community. That's huge with me. And I can just talk about that in so many different ways. But to even Dee Dee's point of talking about what you guys did for the community and what she helped the brothers do, even with the music, in retrospect, with a lot of the grants and different things and programs that you guys were involved in for the community. Let's talk about that, because when it comes down to the music per se, I can be the first to say it was you guys. You know, although the music was there, you had your, you know, Calvin Cook and Ted Beard and Henry Nelson. You know, they were like the ground, the foundation for a lot of what we do. Even so Willie Eason, and so just a lot of the musicians, Bishop Harrison, who came before us. They laid the groundwork for what we do. But let's really talk about it. They really didn't go out as much, and I really didn't see it until you all started to take the music that was inside of the four walls out. And I talk about that, and I say that because it helped me to do it. It helped inspire me to want to share what God gave me, not just within the four walls, but outside. How did that really go with you all? I know you were doing your recordings and stuff, but how did that, I mean, especially within the church? I mean, I could talk about me and the backlash that I got. taking that music outside of the four walls, and you doing this and doing that. But yeah, I did. You know, because it wasn't, and I say it like this: we're lights, and we're supposed to shine our light in darkness. You know.
Yeah, the hypocrisy. There's an element of hypocrisy. There's an element of fear,
Mm-hmm.
and there's an element of trying to maintain tradition.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, those things are always at odds, so to speak. There's always this give and take between the two. All of it's not necessarily nefarious. It's not, you know, there's not necessarily an evil agenda around those things, but people like to preserve the tradition and people like that. But at the same time, there are folks who want to preserve what they have and hold on to what they have.
Right.
But then there are those that are trying to just exercise control. And it's in those respects that you say, okay, what do we do? We started having the opportunity to be able to go out and play after we did our first album in '98.
Mm-hmm.
That's when the opportunity really presented itself for us to do, major venues, foreign countries, and all those kinds of things. And we had no problem with that. But then folks started asking us to come to bars and play really, really, really secular venues. And we did struggle with that big time as to whether or not we should do that or not. Fortunately, we had the support of our father, Bishop Campbell, and my mom, right, who was a deaconess in the church as well. And these folks are staunch, House of God saints, right? First and foremost, to get the titles, they're
right.
just being saints. And so they really had apprehension, but they understood that we weren't just out there trying to do this for fame per se. But what really brought it home for us, I think, was a gentleman asked us to go play his bar in Boston. And our agent said, hey, I don't think the Campbell Brothers really play bars, but I will ask. And they asked us, and we said, no, we can't do that. And the gentleman responded, look, the kind of people that come in this bar and the condition that they're in, if anybody need the music that you all do, it's these people.
Wow.
And he said, you know what? I don't want you to change anything. I don't want you to cross over. I want you to play that same church music that you play. That's what I want you to bring to this bar.
Yeah.
Because these people need it. And we looked at each other and said, you know what? That was it.
Yeah.
That's what broke it for us to say yes. And we went and played his bar, and sure enough, there were people there that really, he sold more Coca-Cola that night. And his bar still did very well. But I think the point was that was profound, right? And I think that really opened our eyes to say, no, this music needs to be shared. It is not to be put under a bushel. It is to be shared and be a light. And if we can edify folks and encourage someone, that's what we should do. Yeah. And again, so then people start asking us, well, are y'all going to evangelize? Y'all need to go out and get people saved and so forth and so on. And we said, no, we'll leave that to the professionals. Our job really is to help people understand that if things are not going right for you, if you're looking for something, try what we are doing. This is what works for us. And if you felt uplifted by this, then take this music and take what we're doing. And that's all you have to do.
Yeah.
And again, invariably, what we've had people say is, you know what? If my church was like this, I'd be going all the time. The reason I can't go to church, I can't deal with the politics of it. I can't deal with the foolishness. If I could just go to church and get spiritually uplifted and leave, I wouldn't mind going to church, but I can't deal with the nonsense. And that's what people invariably tell us.
Wow. Well, the other thing, one thing we learned is we weren't the first. I think we was the most prominent as a steel lead. Mm-hmm. But Willie Eason did records back in the day along with the Soul. He even got a record with the Soul Stirrers.
Wow.
Yeah, and I have a copy of that record. What is it? It's not it's a 45?
45.
Yes. Bishop Lorenzo Harrison and what were they? The Jewel Singers. They did records.
Mm-hmm.
Calvin and
Charles Swinton.
Paul and Charles Swinton, they all did records, and they played at other churches. And then you had people, our singers, and we were so blessed that Katie wanted to sing with us, Katie Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
She knew the ropes very well, but it was a way that she was able to do it where it didn't get as publicized or ruffle feathers. Mm. And so one of the issues you have is the churches from time to time bring you up as a musician. Mm-hmm. And when you're bad, you know, they listen to you. And of course, when you're bad, you there every Sunday, you there before they set up and you ready to play because you can't play a lick, right? Right. All of a sudden you start getting really good. And you get other offers and you in and out. So you messing up what they've come to depend on in service. And so they want to control that to a certain extent. Now to take it a step further, now when you into the national church, it's a matter of them wanting to control what everybody's gonna do. And so you have to come under those type of, and it's, as Phil said, is some of these things go against one another and some of them, so I don't know if Phil remembers, but for a while, Dad didn't really want to come to our, I don't think he came to our concerts at first.
No, he and again, I think there was two things in play. Mm-hmm. One was he wasn't going to stop us.
Right. Okay?
But at the same time, he couldn't be seen associating with such fellows. so you know, but again, and this is the you can empathize with, you know, the tightrope he was walking in the middle of all this. And by the way, you know, shout out to the late Bishop Elliott, right, who took a stand that was controversial to the traditionalists and said, yes, this is a good thing. He determined the house of God was getting exposure and publicity from Sacred Steel that was truly positive and actually putting us on the map where we've never been on the map. And so, you know, we actually, to the extent I'll never forget this, we were actually fortunate enough to tour in Africa with Bobby Jones in 1999. And Bobby, we had such a great time and hit it off so well that we had Bobby Jones lined up to come to the millennial celebration. Wow. And perform at the millennial celebration because it's in Nashville, right? He's based in Nashville. He's
right there. Mm-hmm.
And don't you know, these jokers said that, no, Bobby Jones, we don't want him. Serious beans. Now imagine, because we were actually lined up not only to go on, we were lined up to go on his show. He was going to come to the millennial celebration, at which, remember, we were doing the millennial celebration choir. So we were going to be exposed to Bobby Jones. That could have set us up to go on his show. It was all lined up. And don't you know, right? The reactionaries shut that thing down. Wow. So this just shows you how, you know, I get it. I understand why folks want to preserve the tradition, not have things, you know, destroy what made us, so to speak. Yeah. But at the same time, you can see where it can also stand in the way of progress. And, you know, the could have beens that could have came out of that are, you know, profound.
Yeah.
But we're still growing. People are still growing, and we're proud of all the Steelers and performers that are getting out. And they're really, you know.
Yeah, but the thing is, Chuck, and again, I don't want to be overly critical. But do understand that the missed opportunity there, as far as what could have transpired, how much easier their path could have been made, besides how the church could have benefited. And I think that's the issue. The issue is not even, hey, I want to help guys get famous. If you just even want to take a cynical approach and say, okay, what's even in my own best self-interest? Right. Because you look at the Church of God in Christ, and you look at a lot of these organizations, their artists, they bring their artists back to perform at their national convocations, and that's a draw.
Yeah.
Right? That's how that thing works. Mm-hmm. So those are the things, you know, that you just say, hey, you know, like I said, it's too bad that, you know, people could not you know, have that wider perspective.
Well, you got to look at it this way too. Maybe we weren't ready.
Yeah, but you can get ready. See, in other words, if you win the lottery, no, you ain't ready for that much money. But guess what? You'll deal with it. You know.
Well, that's why a lot of lottery winners end up broke, because they aren't ready. So
they do. Yeah. But guess what? We broke anyway. so I'd at least rather have my chance to own a Rolls Royce before I went back broke again. At least I can say I did it, right?
Right.
Well, all we can do is encourage you, Dante, and the ones that are out there that's doing stuff in the community and other places.
Yeah.
Oh,
keep working at it, and it's it all comes together in due time, and God is in control.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, you know, that's
okay.
That's one. Say that again, Phil.
I said, if we'll take it there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're right. Okay. I'll come back and say, right. It probably was not.
No, but you know what? I'm glad we're talking about it in this way, because I think people need to hear it, and need to hear it in context. They need to hear things like this in context to what really was, or what really is, or what the story really was behind all of that.